Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, the Mase thing is back with yet another rant. We're going to switch up topics. My usual whipping boy is now trapped in the dungeon forever because that's where they belong. We're going to move on to something a little bit interesting, which is a little bit of Resident Evil Requiem. I have been playing this game on stream, which you can also find the replays here on YouTube, and I really think that this game is a damn good Resident Evil game. It's probably one of the better ones that I've seen in years, loaded with things like nostalgia, good scares, interesting use of mechanics that have been brought in with 7 and 8, and frankly, this is what I expect out of a Resident Evil game. Now, the problem with this comes from something very, very simple. I went on Twitter. Yes, I know, a dumb idea to begin with, but it did bring up. I did find this little interesting nugget on the internet from a certain. Well, I'm not even going to try and do anything with the guy's name because he's trying to. He's a Brazilian trying to pretend to be a Japanese guy. It's a stupid thing, but there was one segment in this game where it becomes very nostalgic for a lot of people who have played Resident Evil games. You, when playing as Leon, in the second half of the game, you go back to Raccoon City. This is where everything started for Leon. You get to see some familiar locations, the streets of Raccoon City, and even going back to the Raccoon City Police Department. One of my favorite locations, as you can tell by my shirt. Now, it is a good little nostalgic kick, but it seems that some people don't seem to like it. For example, starting with this tweet is where everything came from Cabrutus. I have seen Cabrutus around a little bit. Don't really care what they have to say. Now, Capcom Brazil put out a difference between 2004 and 2000 and current Leon. I'm guessing it's something to do with the chainsaws. I'm not too sure. I'm not sure what their intention was. But the comment here, why are you guys pretending that the original doesn't exist? I'm guessing this might have something to do with Resident Evil 2. I'm not too sure. But 2004, guess what? That was Resident Evil 4. I think it could be the fact that they used the remake version image in this rather than the original 2004 graphics for the comparison. I don't know. Doesn't seem too bad to me, but whatever, it seems to get people in a tizzy. Now, we have this user here who I'm not even going to bother with him, as I said. He claims to be a software developer from Brazil. He loves games and all this type of stuff, but he's a Kojima fanboy. Um, but when it came to this particular topic, he replied with something that just really, I don't know, it just irked me the wrong way or just didn't seem right. You're a bit of a purist in regards to remakes, so I think you'll get me. In Ari Requiem, revisiting locations in Raccoon City is supposed to feel all nostalgic, but it doesn't because it's based on the locations of the RE2 remake, not the original, so it feels like fake memories. This is one of those people that I hate being a part of the Resident Evil fandom with. And that's because they go on and on about the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes like they are the biggest abominations, the most sinful of sins to ever come across this earth. Now, I've played the original. I have the original. I've got Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation. I have Biohazard 2 on the PlayStation. I also have the Resident Evil 2 remake on PS4, PS5, Xbox, everything, blah, 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 blah. Anything that's been released on, I've got it. Okay, I have a big Resident Evil collection. I am a big Resident Evil fan. And when I saw this, I'm like, besides a couple of little tweaks here and there in the location, there is no real difference between the Raccoon City Police Department in the original and the remake. But that doesn't seem to click to this guy. Like, he goes on about this feels disrespectful to the game's legacy. They're really going like the remake replaced the original, no point playing the original. Kojima did the nostalgia ride thing better with Metal Gear Solid 4. Lol. Like, across the series, he's not afraid to show flashbacks of previous games with the original graphics, even PS1 scenes in Metal Gear Solid 4, not to mention the One Nostalgia Ride section. He's never afraid to acknowledge his video game as a video game. That section in Metal Gear Solid 4 is really good. And yes, they did go back to the Metal Gear Solid 1 PS1 graphics. The reason being, because they're not allowed to reference Twin Snakes because Nintendo technically owns that. Twin Snakes was a thing, dude. I'm sorry, but you can't complain when, hey, one of the games got a remake and it actually was better than the original. I'm sorry, Twin Snakes is better than the PS1 game. And I wish they had included it in the Metal Gear Solid collection, but again, they can't do that because of their contract with Nintendo in regards to that. So Nintendo has final say. Nintendo screwing up everything as usual. But when it comes to Resident Evil, I chimed in. I had to. I couldn't let this slide, personally. So I've come in and gone, this is a dumb take. I love the OG RE2, but I know more people would have played the remake over the OG. Revisiting the RCPD and Requiem is a nostalgic feeling, no matter which version. Music and visuals invoke a feeling. That's how nostalgia works, not which version they remember. Now, when you get into the RCPD, the second you open the doors, you open on flashbacks that Leon has of the location. And then when you get in there, the first thing you hear is that lobby theme, that iconic lobby theme that was in the original and it was remade in the remake. Both versions are great. And yes, the visuals and the layout is going to be the Raccoon City Police Department from the remake because that's what people know now. People aren't going and paying $200-$300 for a copy of Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation. Or even, like, GOG has them pretty cheap. You can buy a bundle of all three for about $20. But the thing is, those games are outdated for a reason. People play those, try and play tank controls. They can't understand tank controls these days. They don't understand the limitations of the hardware at the time and will always want whatever is newer. And I know, for somebody like me, I wish that we could have just gotten the old tank controls, fixed camera angles and everything out of the original, and just redone the graphics. I would have loved that. But Capcom is trying to make everything uniform with their games. They want everything to be like Resident Evil 4. As much as I am not a fan of Resident Evil 4, the original anyway, the remake was actually quite good. They're trying to uniform everything in the RE engine. Same gameplay style, same graphical look, everything. So the game series is cohesive from start to finish. And that's a great thing to do. Yes, they might be sweeping the originals under the rug, but they're still there. You can still play them. GOG has them for PC. I believe that you can get most of the Resident Evil games on the PlayStation Network store. So they're still there. They're still there. They're still a thing. But, people can't leave well enough alone. Once again, we go back to the idiot. It's not a democracy for the amount of people to dictate what are the real Resident Evil 2. It's a simple reality. RE2 is not a game from 2019. It's a game from 1998. The people will dictate what is going to be reality by what sells. RE2 Remake is a high-selling game. RE4 Remake is a high-selling game. RE3 Remake sold. It built a new world and gave us new ways to experience it. So I finished off my little chat with this idiot going, it's both. Resident Evil 2 is a game from 96 and 2019. Both exist and are good games. As for who dictates reality, it's the developers. It's their world, we're just playing in it. And that's the whole thing with these. With this game. We are just the players. Okay, yes, our sales might dictate bits and pieces, But guess what? That's the way it is. You know, this moment that I'm showing right now, going past that original gas station from the beginning of the RE2 remake, absolutely brilliant. I don't see why there's a problem with it. Like, if you're going to complain that your nostalgia is not hitting the way you think it is, then that's a you problem. Nostalgia is what it is to the person. Me, as a Resident Evil fan, I don't care what the location looks like. I don't care what music they're using. That moment of walking in the RCPD for the first time since like Resident Evil 2 in this game, I had a moment of like, I had that nostalgic feeling. I'm like, oh my god, this is that moment of realization for Leon of this is where it all began. Now, Resident Evil is one of those series that, because of all the different writers and everything throughout the years, never had a cohesive storyline. Capcom, through these remakes, are trying to put the timeline together, trying to keep a cohesive narrative and tell a long-term story that leads. They're retrofitting the previous games to fit all the way up to this moment in Requiem. And God bless them for it, because there's so many games out there that turn around and just do it weird. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I couldn't play that for more than an hour. Like, I love Final Fantasy VII. It was the first game I ever got on PlayStation. And I wish I still had my original copy, but I don't. But by the way, this moment, screw Capcom. I'm arachnophobic. Screw them for this moment. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII was the first game I ever got on PlayStation when I first got my PlayStation. It was a great game. I loved it. Played it through. I've played it multiple times since. These remakes, because they went and they changed too much. They changed everything down to, like, oh my god, we're doing a completely different timeline now because it's a remake. I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the game that we had before, just with better graphics. That's what everybody wanted. We wanted that PS3 demo showcase thing from many years ago, where we saw Cloud jumping off the train in his Advent Children gear. That's what we wanted. But now they've turned the remake into Rebirth and whatever the third one's going to be. And at that point, they have absolutely nothing to do with the original game anymore. It's not worth it, at least in my opinion. Whereas at least with these remakes with Resident Evil, they've gone back to correct things. They've changed things around to the point where the game now feels more cohesive. It feels like a proper full-blown narrative. I want to see them keep going. I desperately want Code Veronica. And if everything that they're doing, and hell, remake 6 for the love of God and make it into a cohesive narrative, please. But when people start going, oh my nostalgia, why are you ignoring this game that you originally put out in 1996? That story is ended. That story ended with Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 on the PlayStation are their own locked continuity. That's it. That's the trilogy. Because from Resident Evil 4 onwards, it was a whole new world. It was no longer about the virus, the G virus, the G virus, and stuff like that. All that stuff, gone. And especially when they remade it on the game, Resident Evil 1 on GameCube, guess what? They started retconning things back then too. But nobody talks about Resident Evil 1 remake the same way they do about 2 and 3. Because Resident Evil 1 remake on the GameCube and later, PS3 and everything else that they've put it out on is a pretty much 80% version of the game. It's updated graphics, it's the same narrative story, just with little additions here and there and changes here and there. And people seem to view that one fine. Personally, I want that one redone in the same style as the 2, 3, 4 remakes. I want that gameplay style. I want that third person over the shoulder, that type of thing. And with Resident Evil Requiem, I think they've finally hit that point where, guess what? You can do it. You can have this moment where things are scary. This game was scary as hell. Spider thing aside, because they played upon my arachnophobia. But it's one of those things of, I hate that people turn around and go, oh, because you're not acknowledging the originals, therefore everything you are doing is wrong. At the end of the day, like I said in my final tweet, it's the developer's world. We're just players. We're just playing it. We're playing the end result. If they want to change the story, change a timeline, change a fact here and there, change a moment, because it suits the overall narrative that they're trying to tell, that's their prerogative. That's what they can do with their time and effort and everything else. And they're more than welcome to do it. I welcome it, in fact. Frankly, if you're going to complain about legacy and nostalgia, maybe you need to take a look at yourself and what you expect from that nostalgia. A lot of things age badly. Resident Evil is one of them. I acknowledge that. Playing through 1, 2, and 3 again on the PC thanks to GOG, I understand it. I understand that these games are badly aged and they needed an update to work with the current games. But if you can't realize that, that's your fault. I'm Mase. I'm done ranting. Go away now.